Welcome to the Snowbird Investor Way, where we explore what it takes to create your dream cross-border lifestyle, living and investing amongst the sun, sand, and palm trees of Florida, even if you're not a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. I'm your host, Coach Roel.
So, Roel, we've been talking so much about, advise them to get started. How could they get from where they are right now to living this cross-border lifestyle?
I think I know where that student is coming from because I've had that question posed to me several times, actually. And so a lot of times people are saying like, okay, so how do I get from where I am now to where I want to be, which is launching this Florida business as a U.S. foreign national? It just like, I'm not even investing in my home country. How do I get started with all this stuff? And I truly believe that it's a multi-layered approach and it goes quite deep. So I hope you're comfortable because I'd really like to be able to address that question in those layers. So I know when people ask that question, it's like they're expecting an answer like, oh, you can get free money from this program, or you just snap your fingers and a joint venture angel investor will magically come to your rescue and give you all the money that you want to be able to invest in acquire properties. That's not reality. Okay, so really there's objective reality, and it's really going to be like more of a psychological approach, if you will. So on the one level, there's objective reality. It's like I stub my toe on a bedpost and it hurts. That's objective reality. I'm in Orlando, Florida right now. You are in Canada right now. That's what I mean by objective reality. That's what most people consider, or that's what they're referring to when they say, I want to change this. Like I want to be able to go down to Florida whenever I want for however long I want. I love all the stuff that you're talking about, Coach Roel, but I just don't see how I can possibly do that. Okay, well, hold on to that thought because that's your objective reality, right? How did you get to this objective reality? So let me make this up from an amalgamation of many different people have asked me that question. First one is, okay, you're working a 9-to-5 job. You, in this post-pandemic era, you have to go in 3 days a week and you can still work remotely for 2 days a week. How did you get there? Well, you applied for that job once upon a time, right? And you went through the interview process and then you got the job and you showed up and pandemic happened. You had to work remotely, blah, blah, blah. That's how you ended up getting here. Those were your actions, right? So your current objective reality are a result of your actions, quite simply. And what actions were they? They're not anything esoteric. Like I said, you went to a job interview, maybe you saw a job ad, maybe you got a referral from a friend, and you took action. Okay, so there, we're one level deeper, right? Then what about actions? How did those actions come about? What affected those actions? Well, in my experience from coaching lots of people about this similar topic, how do you make a change, much less investing in Florida? Well, first, you probably talked about it. Like, again, I'll put it in the context of a traditional job. You maybe once upon a time, you were sitting at a job that you didn't like. And you're like, I think I'm done here. I don't like the politics or the pay grade, or I got turned down for a promotion yet again. I think I need to find a new job. So you spoke that, you said those words. Maybe you thought about it, maybe you spoke about it, but then that resulted in your action. So again, objective reality, you had your actions, you went through the interviews. What influenced the actions was your words. And your words and your thoughts are kind of mixed into the same level there. So again, we're going, another level deeper, right? So you talked about finding another job, you talked about, maybe even it was just personal inner dialogue. I'm done with this. I don't like the politics. I got passed over for the promotion. That person took credit for my hard work. I'm done. So those are the words and thoughts, right? So you're getting down a level deeper. So let's say you just talked about it. Well, words don't just come out of nowhere. Again, the level deeper, what affected the words was your thoughts, your thoughts of, I don't like this job anymore. I want to find a new one. But yet there's another level deeper than that is what affects your thoughts. And this is where most people don't really get it or we haven't even thought about it. So pay very close attention to this one. Where do your thoughts come from, or what affects your thoughts? It's your self-image. Ta-da! Like the Netflix whatever logo, right? It's kind of a difficult thing, I admit, sometimes for people to accept the fact that their thoughts come from their self-image. What do I mean by self-image? It's, do you deserve it? What do you tolerate? I've said many times, you get what you tolerate. And it can be in any area, not just investing across borders or in having this Florida cross-border lifestyle, sun, sand, and palm trees, all that beautiful stuff. But if you don't feel like you deserve it, yeah, again, the self-image with self-esteem, kind of mix that together, it's not going to happen. So going back right to the beginning to your question, I know is a long way to get to that one, is where do you start? Do you really feel like you deserve it? Not is it possible, not how, where do I get the money? Where do I find the deals? It's actually doesn't start there. It starts with, do you really feel you deserve it? Like, is your self-image, are you an international real estate investor? Do you deserve to be? Or is that reserved for other people who live that lifestyle? Right?
So would you say it's similar to mindset, or even a layer deeper than mindset? Your self-image, like how you think about yourself, really, your mindset about yourself, maybe.
It is, yeah. It's a very, very accurate observation. It's the easier way to, I would say, most people make it more accessible is your mindset, yeah, right. But unfortunately, I feel like mindset, that term is used, it's tossed around a little bit too easily, especially if you're like a fan of self-development books and you're watching these things or listening to podcasts and stuff. People always talk about this esoteric thing, mindset. Oh, if I could just figure that thing out. Yes, that's accurate. But for the analytical types, and I think you can relate to this, being analytical, the logical part, right?
Yeah.
Is, okay, so what is mindset? What the heck is mindset? How do I change that? Where is it? Where does mindset reside in my brain? And that's where I offer a solution or a suggestion that it has to do with self-image and self-esteem. Because if deep down inside, you're like, I don't really think I deserve that because I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not bold enough. Well, that's your self-image. That's your self-esteem, right?
And
So
those
you
are
got to
really
get
your
over that
thoughts,
first.
right? It's going up the layers too. That's your self-image. Those are the thoughts that you may be consciously or even unconsciously thinking about, which really your thoughts are turning into words. I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough. I could never do that. I don't deserve it. So then you'll never take any action. And then your reality will stay the same. Your objective reality will stay the same. So,
Exactly. And you know, what you said, hearing you kind of paraphrase what I said, reminds me of an affirmation that I have my children recite to me every morning. I think I might have told you this before, but we never recorded it.
yeah.
And so I say to like Bianca, my daughter, my middle daughter, I say in the back seat, I say, so Bianca, I'm good enough. And then she right away, she knows what to say. Here's what she says. And I'll probably post this at some point. I'll record her doing it. It's the cutest thing. She says, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and darn it, people like me. Mommy loves me, daddy loves me, and always be the bank. I can do anything I put my mind to. I can do this. Yes, I can. And so she rhymes this off. I don't think she really understands what she's saying, but me as a parent, I'm implanting this into her subconscious now, because I don't know if you knew or read about when children are, she's 7 years old right now. She's basically in a constant state of trance.
Yes.
She doesn't have a filter to be able to say, I don't think that's true. She take like the tooth fairy, like Santa Claus, make sure she's not around.
Yeah.
Kids believe that because they're in a constant, their brains are at a constant state, in a constant state of trance where they just accept anything. Yeah. Santa Claus is coming. Oh my gosh. They don't say as a 7-year-old, really, how does Santa Claus do this and that? You and I will question that when we're a little bit older. Like, how does Santa Claus actually come down the chimney if he's this big fat guy? And then how does he get to all the houses in one night? We don't have those questions until we're much older.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I'm planting those seeds right now so that when they're, I joke around about this. So when she's talking to her therapist, when she's an adult, she's like, my dad told me when I was 7 years old to recite this, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, blah, 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 blah.
I
So
like
if
how
we
you
need,
threw in mommy loves me, daddy loves me, and always be the bank. That's my favorite part, right? That was a good one. You just
yeah,
stuck it in there.
planning those financial lessons. But
Yeah.
the next part is I ask her to recite the 7 rules of real estate investing, which is, so that's a whole other episode, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can definitely relate to that too. I mean, when I was talking about the job world, when I was in my corporate job, it really started with maybe, there's got to be a better way. Like these were the thoughts and words going through my mind. Like there's got to be a way to do this. Eventually, there was enough frustration to say, okay, I deserve better than this. And I can go and I can do something about this. I don't have to work this corporate 9 to 5 or 9 to 8 job every single day. And really, my action was actually back then, it was I signed up for a Facebook. Facebook ad came on, and I signed up for a free webinar, and through Rich Dad Education, and that's where we met and all of that. But it was that action that really started my real estate investing journey, or started me on a new trajectory, right? So
Exactly.
it does come down to that deeper level of, I think people almost need to get like a little bit frustrated or angry enough or annoyed enough, a big emotion that will, a big, almost like a negative emotion that makes them say, enough is enough. I want something different and I can do something about it. So,
Yes. And let me pinpoint on that, because that's exactly it. And we all experience this, but now that we bring light to it, and I love this question that you posed from that student, because so many other people pose a similar type question. It's that frustration. Why are you frustrated? Because you believe you deserve better. And to really burn your noodle, this applies to everything. Like what comes to mind too is even women in an abusive relationship.
mhm.
How do they get out of it? I'm not a woman, but from what I've heard of personal friends of mine, how they got out of those relationships is because they said, at one point, I just said, enough is enough. I deserve better than this.
Mhm.
So they finally grew a pair. No, I shouldn't say that. They finally, you would say that,
Yeah,
but
I would do that.
but they finally said enough is enough. And they said, you know what? I deserve better. That's their self-esteem. That's their self-image. And sometimes you just peek your head above the surface and think, you know what? I deserve better than this. But then you go back down and you're like, no, I deserve this because whatever, I made bad choices and blah, blah, blah. You make excuses. But if you can peek your head above the surface and say, you know what? I do deserve better than this. That's the starting point.
Mm, yeah, yeah. And taking action, really, because you can think those thoughts, I deserve better, but again, if you don't actually take some sort of small action, whether it's signing up for a webinar, or maybe talking to a friend, if you're in an abusive relationship, of what are some of your options, or a counselor, right? There needs to be some sort of action, because otherwise you can have that spark of inspiration and say, I'm going to do better, I deserve better, but you really need to take some sort of action to move you forward, or
There
away
is.
from,
But even then, there's also those levels of action as well, right? Like even just speaking it is a sense of action.
It's true. Yeah. Well, awareness, and speaking it is always like one of the first steps to anything. So, yes, that is the big action step.
But you
So,
can go up and down that ladder of objective reality, actions, words, thoughts, self-image, self-esteem. You can kind of go up and down that ladder, that dichotomy, and be
mhm,
like, okay, so one influences the other, et cetera. But if you put it in that kind of framework, it's like, okay, where am I stuck at?
mm,
Is it okay? I feel like I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and darn it, people like me. I can think that, I can say it to myself. But I think what you're referring to again is what a lot of people will say is that, well, what action do I take? When do we get to the money part of it? It's like, well, that's another level. But If you're not at that point, you got to check yourself and say, what kind of thoughts am I thinking? What kind of words am I saying? Am I saying it's impossible? Just by saying that, stating the fact that, reiterating the question is like where you are with this cross-border lifestyle of Florida thing and where I'm at, it just feels like such a big gap. Those are your beliefs, your thoughts, your words, and all that. First, maybe you can start with, maybe it's not such a big gap.
Yeah.
Well, if that Coach Roel Yehu could do it, then I can do it. Maybe he's not so different from me. Maybe that Liz lady, she's impressive and all, but she's not that different from me. Maybe you start by there, by believing, like you were saying, the mindset is don't make your goal like it's unachievable, because you know what? If you believe it's unachievable, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if you start saying it is achievable, guess what? You're right as well.
Yeah. And like you said, you move up this ladder, right? Of your thoughts, your
I believe
acts,
the word I used was dichotomy.
the dichotomy. You go up and down this dichotomy, and really you can always, that's always for any stage of life, right? Like maybe where my cross-border lifestyle is now isn't like yours, and that's okay, and maybe we're meant to have different ones, but perhaps, let's say if I wanted to move down there too, right, there's another action step or belief that will make all of that possible for me, right? So we're always moving up to the next level. There's always going to be a new level of self-image, thoughts and words and mindset and actions that you're going to have to take. So it's continuous actions moving you towards that goal. And the end goal, I'm sure for you too, is always changing, right? You reach a goal and then there's always a new goal.
Yeah. You enjoy it for 15 minutes. Yeah, you enjoy it for 15 minutes and then you're like, what am I going to do next? Right.
Exactly.
But if you'll allow me, Liz, let me put you on the hot seat just for a moment.
Okay.
Similarly, it's funny that you mentioned that too. It's like, so you're at your level of whatever stage you're at. What would you say is your next level? So you have properties in Naples, which is awesome. And you were able, one of the episodes we said recently was you've been back and forth in the last 12 months like 6 times or something. Like that's a cross-border lifestyle from my perspective as well. But yet you have another aspiration. So what's the next level for you?
So my next level would be to get an E2 visa, perhaps, and then be able to live down there. Again, that's something my husband and I have talked about. Really, my overall level is I want to be a digital nomad and live all over the world. How can I spend more time in Florida is kind of that micro step in between. It's a warmer climate. So right now I'm already doing that with some of that cross-border lifestyle back and forth. But if I choose to, or if I want to stay there even longer, then perhaps, applying for that E2 visa and is going to be my next action step if I choose to stay down there more than the allowed time, right? And want to move my family down there, or even if I don't want to move my family down there, at least it'll give me the ability to stay and work down there if we choose to do that, right? So
yeah, so in context, it's the same formula, framework, if you will, too, is okay. So that's great. That's inspirational. And then it's like, okay, so how do I get started doing that? Well, first, start with, do I deserve it? Hell yeah, I deserve that. Okay. So then keep thinking it, keep focusing on it. What's the picture? What does it look like? What would fill out the details, keep talking about it. Like you talk about it with me all the time and with other members of our Snowbird investor group. And then you also took action. So it's like, it's amazing when you think of it that way. It's like, oh, so I can, I am good enough. I am smart. I can do anything I put my mind to. All that stuff then takes on a whole new meaning. It's like, oh, shoot. Right. So it's a framework that's really helped me over the years and still helps me.
great. So what would you say is the tiniest micro step that someone can take towards launching their Florida investing business or any kind of, personal change that they might want to take? What would you say is that next tiny micro step that they could do?
I think most practically, it's dare to dream. That's actually probably more like step 2 or 3, which is the thoughts and the words, like dare to dream and speak it. And when they say in like the manifestation circles and act as if and law of attraction is speak it into existence.
Mm.
So when I say dare to dream, it's look at pictures of scenery. Like if it's a Florida thing, this stuff can be applied to whatever change you want to have, right? But because we're part of the Snowbird Investor Club, this is context. So it's not just esoteric, mystical, whatever stuff, but let's put in the context of how do I get from being a US foreign national, dealing with the winters every year, and how do I set up the framework so that I can actually fly south and it's a legitimate tax deduction through a business? Well, how does that actually happen? Again, dare to dream. So look at pictures about it, read articles, you'll find that it's in your awareness, talk about it with friends and stuff, but then also remember the dichotomy that I outlined is it's all well and good to talk about it and think about it, but do you truly believe it? Do you feel you deserve it? Yes, at once upon a time, I used to sit on the 401 highway twice a day, morning and evening, for 60 minutes to 2 hours sitting in rush hour traffic. And I was only just thinking it would be so great. Wouldn't it be cool if, right? If I could be in amongst the sunset and palm trees and still be able to make money and still be able to provide for my family. Sitting in that car, I remember it vividly because I would be sitting there in traffic, really not going anywhere and thinking, oh my gosh, just dreaming about it. And then I dreamt about it so much that I started feeling like, you know what? Screw it. I deserve this. Like we've got one life to live as far as, Western civilization goes. But you got one life to live and there is no dress rehearsal. So why not go for Jim Carrey said this thing. I'll end off this unless you have more questions, but his dad, Jim Carrey was famously quoted as saying his father was the funniest man he had ever met. And he actually met not Don Rickles. Who's the guy that says Rodney Dangerfield? No respect, no respect. So Rodney Dangerfield, some of you might not know that, but he's an old school comedian. He met Jim Carrey's dad when Jim Carrey was just starting out on the stand-up circuit. And he had him in stitches. Rodney Dangerfield could not get a word in edgewise because Jim Carrey's dad was making him laugh so much. And it's an amazing story because when Jim Carrey talked about his dad in this one way, he said, growing up, seeing how my dad was the funniest person I had ever met in the world, and seeing that he went for his, ironically, his accounting job. He never wanted to leave his accounting job. He said, Jim Carrey said this, he said, watching my dad have his dreams and not go after it taught me that you can also fail at something you don't want. Holy smokes. So his dad still failed at his accounting job, in his own words. Yeah. So if you're going to fail at your plan B, might as well go for your plan A, because at least you have a chance to actually make it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, thanks so much for those words of wisdom. Always appreciate the guidance. And I can't wait to hear more.
Thank you, Liz. Always a pleasure.